So what I'm here to tell you today is I need you to take account for your own ability and to keep your fire burning, knowing that God's eyes are on you. Nothing has gone unseen. Every tear you've cried, every question you've asked, every hand raise you've given, every seed you've sown, all of it is laid before his eyes. And that needs to be enough. Welcome to Free to Dream podcast. Join me as we dive into what truly means to dream with God as we create uninhibitedly and live unapologetically. Are you free? This is the Free to Dream podcast. Hello there, and welcome to another Free to Dream podcast episode. My name is JG, and you will find me here every single week helping you do hard things well. Do you know what I'm saying? I am so glad for any of you who will continue to tune in. You know that this is where we really start to unpack what does it look like to dream bold with the Lord, and not just dream bold with him, but do hard things well as we create uninhibitedly and live unapologetically. Now, if you are new to the podcast, welcome. We're glad that you're here. You should tell everybody you know. It's going to change your life. And if your life changes, you don't want to do that alone. So make sure you not only hit that subscribe button, but you also pass this along to one person who needs a life change too. We're all in this together. And today we are talking about accountability. Wait a minute. For those of you who are like talking about what I'm out, I'm not talking about this anymore. No, you need to stay. I know. You're like, what does accountability have to do with creating uninhibitedly and living unapologetically? Like, what do those things have to do in common? Well, everything. And in fact, it's almost like Tina Turner. Do you remember her song, What's Love Got to Do? Got to do with it. You know, like, what's accountability got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? That's literally not what she said, but she should have, right? Because far too many of us strive to succeed in this world, right? We push, we do more, we manage more to the point of sheer exhaustion, right? Or burnout. Like, we literally bear the false responsibility of the world around us. Not that I know anything about this, but if I did, right? Or there are those of you who are like cringing at the fact that I'm even talking about this today. Like, you're literally like, I thought we were just going to create with no responsibility, right? Like we cringe because we don't have goals. Like, we don't want goals. We don't want people telling us what to do or when to do it by. But truth be told, we all think we know a lot about that word accountability, but burnout or even disgust would tell me that we have no idea, which is why I'm here with you today. So buckle up, Tina Turner. We're going to do this. This one is for you. We're going to talk about accountability. Now, if you listened to last week's episode, which you should, and if you didn't, go back and binge that one and the one before and the one before, because we strive to make binging popular when you're binging the right things, right? And so I want you to go back because I just kind of started to hint on accountability in that last episode. But today we're going to be talking about what it actually is and why we need it if we are going to be living free and creating uninhibitedly, right? Like, it's actually a huge piece to this whole thing. So we're going to be doing that today. Now, where are we going to start? Well, we're going to define the word. And thank goodness for Google, because I don't know about you, but like, when I don't know what to do, I Google. Like, when I get stuck in my marriage, when I get stuck with my health and fitness, when I like need to dream bold dreams and I just don't know where to go, I go to Google. You're like, is she for real? Some of you just looked down at the phone to make sure that you're for it. Like, for real, this is what we do, right? Like, how many of you are guilty of hitting a roadblock, hearing yourself say, I don't know, and then what is the next thing we do? We pick up the phone and we Google it. Like, what did we do before Google? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was not efficient. But let's start there, right? Because good news is it's an incredible search engine. You should try it. Other news, breaking news, is that it is actually not the most reliable resource for us as believers. But we're going to start there because I think it's also partly why we misunderstand this word and why we either hate it or overachieve because of it. But we are really going to take this word and we are going to align today into what God also talks about when He references this whole concept of accountability and the things, like what the heck? Why are we talking about this today? You'll see. You'll see. You can do hard things. Turn to your neighbor. I can do hard things. All right. By definition, what is accountability? Well, if I just put that in Google search, the definition is the fact or condition of being accountable. Like, thank you for that. That's super helpful. It means responsibility. It's an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. Great. It's not wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with that definition. I'm just not sure it's the one that we're supposed to be hanging our lives on, right? It says having an obligation to do something or having control over or care for someone as part of one's job or role. It's also known as being the primary cause of something and so able to be blamed or credited for it. Now, there's a good definition that tells us why we either hate it or love it. I am the primary cause of something and I'm now able to be blamed or credited for it. Here's probably why some of us love it, because we want some credit up in here, right? Like, I did that. Yep, that was me. Yep, there's my name. Yep, those are my followers. Yeah, that's my doing. Like, let's talk about it. Like, the reality is we are all egotistical at some level and we love to take credit for the things that we do. Equally so. No, I don't want to be blamed for that, right? Like, I have 5 kids, you guys. So I know nothing. My kids are perfect. And so I don't know about yours, but my children never blame someone else for not doing the dishes or for not having made their bed or the reason that their shoes can't be found. Like, their their knee jerk is not to be like, "Oh, I am the reason why my sibling can't find their shoes. I'm the reason that the dishes are not done. I am the reason that the house is a mess." Like, no, none of them do that. And in fact, when I'm like, "Hey, where are Zion's shoes?" The first thing out of Zion's mouth, "Malachi stole them." You're like, "Malachi stole?" You look at Malachi, he's like, "Why would I steal them?" You're like, I said to Aslan, "Can you do the dishes tonight, baby?" "I did them last night." I'm like, I cooked you dinner last night and the night before and the night before. Oh, and I think the 17,000 nights before that too. Already right out of the gate. We either love accountability because we're like, "Me, I did that," or we're like, "No, I ain't taking the blame for that one. Like, I'm not going to say I'm going to do it and then not do it. Come on, y'all, that just hit super close to home." Think about it. You and I both know unconsciously that the minute we sign up, all of us have been at that church service where they're like, "Come on down if you want to be living bold for the Lord and ministering to people and being evangelistic and being commissioned and doing the things." If anyone is smart enough, you're like, "Oh heck no, I'm not doing that, because now if I get down there, then all these people watching me are going to make sure that I do it. And I'm not so sure I'm actually going to do it, because I might feel good about doing it in the moment, but sticking with it, that's a different story, JG. That's like the real rough riders right there." We've gotten so hyper egotistical or so soft. Sorry, this is not what I intended. I'm just trying to make light of this topic. But this is probably why we don't like accountability, because I don't man, at some level, if we follow that thread of I need the credit, we start to sabotage, because we know that we are still human and we are going to make mistakes and we are going to fail. And the reality is that even if we can keep up the facade for a while, someone's going to get close enough or stick around long enough to know that we are not as good as they think we are. Right? And so at some point we falter and we fail and we make a mistake, or our ego gets so big that our character doesn't have the ability to hold the things that we're accomplishing. And so that's where you're seeing people in the church fall prey to adultery. This is why you're seeing people fall prey to addiction. Why? Because the things around me are changing more than the world within me. And so I am signing up for a big dose of I got it and I don't got it. Or we're just shying away from it altogether because we couldn't stand the blame, shame, or guilt of not doing what we said we were going to do. Or heck, being the target for someone else and them not being able to do what they said they were going to do. This is real talk, y'all. So where's why we're talking about this? Because it also means capable of being trusted and morally accountable for one's behavior. Okay. So now, what does the Bible say about accountability? Well, Hebrews 4:13 says nothing. Repeat after me, nothing. What does that word nothing mean? Nothing, nada, zilch, zero. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's eyes, hidden from his sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of him whom we must give account. That word account is a root word for accountability. Homeschool mom right here. Account, accountability. What is the scripture talking about? Accountability, root word being account. We're going to have to give account to who? God. Where in all creation, nothing is hidden. So the things that you think you're hiding from the person watching your social media, he sees. The thing that you're hiding from the people who love you the most, he sees. The dreams that you're pushing under the rug because you're afraid of what other people think, he sees. And P.S. Go watch last week's episode. The fear, the shame, the guilt, all of it, he sees all of it. And the beauty of this is this should not shame you. This should not give you a hall pass to continue to sin. This just suggests a principle and truth that there is nothing in all of creation that you can hide from the eyes that matter most. His eyes, not other people's eyes, not someone else's eyes, not what everybody else is doing, not blame or credit, his eyes, right? He is the one whom we must give account. Now, here is where this word meets real life. Okay. As a growth coach for the past 10 years, people have come to me because they want to grow. I'm not a life coach. I wouldn't even say I'm a business coach. I'm a growth coach. So people have come to me because they want to grow. And generally speaking, anyone who is aware enough to know that I want to grow means I need to stop doing what I've always done to get results I've never got. And so I need to do something I've never done so that I can experience something I've never had. So in theory, though growth can be very sexy, it's not. In fact, it's very awkward and it is very messy. And growth is not easy. In fact, it's very, very difficult, which is why everybody will raise their hand to say, I want to grow. I want change. And then the minute we start to grow and the minute we start to change, people are like, I'm out. I don't want to do this. Okay. So in working with thousands of people, one of, not the only, but one of the things that I've heard the most is, okay, I'm just going to really need you to help me be accountable in this. Okay. All right. I'm going to need an accountability partner. Are you that for me? I have them say all the time, like, okay, when I start moving forward with you, will you be the one who will hold me accountable? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. You got the wrong gal. I don't believe in me needing to be accountable for you. That is not on me. That's on you. But check it out. How many of us are guilty? We hire a personal trainer for what? To keep us accountable. We have accountability partners for what reason? To keep us accountable. We hire a business coach for what main reason? To keep us accountable to our goals, to our dreams, to doing hard things. You're like, well, yeah, isn't that why we spend thousands of dollars? Isn't that why we hire coaches? Isn't that why we do the masterminding groups? So that someone else can help us hold us accountable? And here's what I would like to tell you today. It's exactly why our motivation ebbs and flows, why we've got it some days and we're spinning the next day, why we believe that we're like on top of a mountain one day and the next day we're not. It's why we also see ourselves completely on point when that accountability partner is in the room, and why we fall off the bandwagon when they're not. Is because if that's my mode of operandi, if that's my reason for having accountability, then I am now dependent upon someone else being in the room, someone else tallying my efforts to keep me accountable. Now, here's what I'm doing. If that is true, then I am outsourcing my own place of accountability to somebody else. I'm now asking you to do for me what, in fact, I should be able to do for myself. But because I've normalized this whole idea of accountability, thinking that I know what it means, I've missed the actual reason that I need to be accountable. And it's not so you can help me do hard things. It's because all of creation is not hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before his eyes. And so the reason that I am accountable is not for you. The reason I am accountable is because I believe that my life lays bare before the Lord, and he is the reason that I do what I say I'm going to do. In and of itself, accountability is brilliant if we have the right reason, if we have the focus on the right thing. So last week we talked a lot about, are my eyes more on the opinions of other, or are they on Jesus, right? Is my care more in the hands of someone else, or is my care more in the hands of Jesus? Accountability is the same thing. Now, if I were to share with you my definition of accountability, it's taking account for your own ability. It's the word. Do you know what I mean? Like, I appreciate Google like doctoring it up and giving us a lot of false responsibility in the fact that now I need to live up to someone else's standards, doing what I say I'm going to do all the time, making sure I hold up all the walls in the room, and that I'm making sure that I cross every T and dotting every I, right? Like, accountability in and of itself is creating false responsibility. And then it's shaming us for not doing what we said we were going to do. There is no shame or condemnation for those who are in Christ. This does not enable us, nor does it shame us. It empowers us. It uplifts us. It calls us higher, right? And it allows us to realize that taking account for our own ability is literally what the word says. I mean, write it down. Some of you are like, oh, that is a good one, JG. Like, it's like literally in the word. Accountability equals taking account for your ability. That's a good word right there. Now, here's why this is so important for all of us, is that when I understand who God is, what he's called me to, and the unique giftings, calling, strengths, even weaknesses that I have, that I am able to internally develop a fire within myself that cannot be taken out, that cannot be distinct, like that cannot be extinguished, that cannot be calmed down or motivated more by the things around me because it's in me. So if my accountability is dependent upon the people or the things around me, then I am outsourcing my fire. I am letting someone else be responsible for turning me on and turning me off, right? I'm going to do one more push up if you're around, but then I won't do a push up if you're not around. I'm going to make one more phone call if you're in the room, and I have to tell you every Friday versus not doing it because no one will really know. Like, says nobody who is being obedient to what God has asked them to do. And I would like to propose that our lives as believers should be marked by accountability, not false responsibility, not overemphasizing our strengths, completely ignoring our weaknesses, but actually being humbled and in awe of understanding that we are a reflection of our creator, right? Like, his glory is seen in and through our lives, and he has given me a unique role to play, a unique influence in this world, a unique ability to do what only I can do. And instead of giving that to someone else, right, to forge that fire within me, I'd like to propose that he has given us the opportunity to fan that flame that we have within ourselves if we will just lean in and take account for our own ability. Now, here's what I know pops up for most of us right out of the gate. Well, those of you who are like ready to eat this for breakfast, let's just like let's just put a thumbnail in that right now. And like, we're going to come back to that. But for those of you who are like, immediately you start to go, well, I don't know my unique value proposition. I don't know what makes me, I don't know my spiritual gifts. I don't know my dreams. I don't know. Okay. So here's what we teach in our home. The Gentry kids are never allowed to say, I don't know. That in and of itself is a statement that allows us to kind of like dust our hands off and not take responsibility for the fact that the word of God says, be still and know that there is always a way to know. It is not an excuse to not seek and find. It's an invitation to get curious. It's an invitation to lean more. It's an invitation to uncover the glory of God, of big questions that we don't yet understand, but ultimately His word verifies that as His children, that we actually get to delight in the very spoken word of God, that we get to play a role in His plans, that we get to lean into His wisdom. In the book of James, James actually says this. James 1, verse 5. If you want to know what God wants you to do, ask Him, and He will gladly tell you, for He is always ready to give a bountiful supply of wisdom to all who ask Him. Another translation says, and if anyone longs to be wise, ask God for wisdom, and He will give it. He won't see your lack of wisdom as an opportunity to scold you over your failures, but He will overwhelm your failures with generous grace. Now, here's what I need us to rewire in our mind and in our heart. We always know. It's, are we willing to know? So we've trained our kids, instead of saying, I don't know, they go, fascinating. How could I know? Right? It says, it is the glory of kings, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It is the glory of kings to seek it out. What does that mean? It means that if I just want an answer from God, I'm going to hate these answers. If I just want a quick fix, easy answer, purple pill that makes all of this go away, then no, I'm not going to really enjoy this ride with the Lord. Because in fact, what I'm wanting is what's in God's hand. I don't want what's in His heart. And so what He's saying is that He's never hiding anything from us. He's hiding it for us in His glory. He literally reveals answers within Himself, not because He wants us to have more answers. He wants us to have more of Him. The world doesn't need more answers. It's got them. And in fact, any question you might have, go to Google and you will find pages and pages and pages and pages of answers. And yet, the more we Google, the less we know. Why? That verse, be still and know that I am God, that's because that word know actually means yada, which is an experience or an encounter. It's not intellectual. It's a spiritual revelation that becomes so real to me that as I'm seeking Him for answers, fair, at the starting line, I actually begin to find His answers in Him, right? It is now the glory that I'm after. So when we see what James is proposing to us, he's not just saying, if any one of you longs to have an answer, did you catch that? He doesn't say, if you want an answer for God, ask Him, and He's going to tell you exactly what you need to hear, just when you need to hear it, so you can follow a 1, 2, 3 step guide and be successful for the rest of your life. I think that's what some of us think that's what that says. That's why we're really annoyed and pissed off when no, I have been asking. No, okay, there. You've been asking, but I think you just want an answer. True or true? Well, yeah, isn't that what you ask? No. James says, if anyone longs to be wise, if we dive into the book of Proverbs, which is not what today is about, but it literally talks about, here's number one, it's written from the richest man who's ever lived. But over and over and over again, the man is talking about get understanding, get wisdom, get understanding, get wisdom. Have you ever read that? And you're like, why does he keep saying get understanding and wisdom as though they're two separate things? Because they are. Getting understanding is intellectually being able to know what you're learning, to know what you're talking about. So even as I say things that you need to have a dream, that you need to know your spiritual gifts, to be able to understand and honor your strengths, to know what those weaknesses are, to know about yada and experiencing God and encounters and praying in tongues and prophetic words. Some of you might be like, what the heck are you talking about? Here's the deal. Then step one is you need to get understanding. You need information. You need knowledge. Now, be careful that you don't just stop at Google to get knowledge, right? Like Google is a bunch of facts that aren't always true. Can I get an amen? Facts and truth are not always the same. So as we lean in on topics we don't understand, we need to go straight to the word. Now, can we use Google as an assist? Yes. But anything that is outside of the truth of God, then it's a fact, but it doesn't mean that it's true. And we don't hang our lives on facts. We hang our lives on truth. It's like the difference between science and faith. Science, the number one thing is evidence. In biblical Christianity, our number one thing that our evidence is faith, things that we can't see, right? So get understanding. Now, once I have understanding and I can intellectually understand what are spiritual gifts, I can intellectually understand what I'm good at, what the call on my life is, what the dream that God has for me. I'm going to suggest today that you know those things, that you've had an encounter, that someone has spoken a prophetic word. I'm going to now pretend like you've got a dream. I'm going to pretend like someone's given you a word. I'm pretending you got journals, pages upon pages of doing some self-exploration, and you know by now your strengths, your weaknesses, your dreams, your fears, the prophetic words, and what you want most, the thing that God's called you to do, right? Let's just for a second lean in there. Are you feeling stuck but unsure of how to get unstuck? You know you have dreams, but it just feels like life is getting in your way. The truth is, life is not standing in the way of your dreams. You just need a dream bold enough to live for, which is why I'm excited to invite you to my upcoming completely free event, Dare to Dream Experience Night, on Thursday, March 20th at 5:30 Mountain Standard Time. At Experience Night, you will uncover why dreaming with God is not just important, but essential in your life's purpose. You will break through and identify the obstacles keeping you from living the dreams that God has given you. And I will equip you with the proven tools that have helped thousands of other people bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Register for Dare to Dream Experience today by clicking on the link below, or if you're watching on YouTube, scanning that QR code right there. It's completely free. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. If not now, when? And if not you, who? Now you're in a place of wisdom. So is it still, as you're chasing boldly after the things that God had called you to, as you are learning about what it means to take account for your ability, as you are doing hard things, does that still mean that you're going to come to points in this journey that you're like, no, like literally, intellectually, I don't know what I'm supposed to do? Great, get understanding. But I would like to propose that for some of us, the piece that we're missing is not understanding. It's not that we don't know what to do next. Most of us do. Do one more push-up, go for a mile walk, make 10 phone calls, write a chapter in the book, ask for help, call someone who's built the ministry, call someone who's built the church. Like, our next steps are not complex. They're just really hard to do, which means we need wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is an encounter with revelation. Wisdom is something that has me so much that I can't not, right? Wisdom is when God invades your insecurity and all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, so like you're bigger than my insecurity. You're bigger than my I don't know. You have done something in my life to reveal yourself to me in such a way that I can't not take the next step, that I can't not chase after my dreams, that I can't not make the phone call. That is where revelation, it's like rubber hitting the road, right? This is why I think that when we get to this place of learning how to take account for our ability, you're either in the piece that you do need some understanding. You haven't spent enough time understanding the list of things that I shared with you. Being in a community, right? Getting in a church, reading the word about spiritual gifts. Oh my gosh, buying my book about getting clear on what does it mean to dream with the Lord. Like, this isn't some ad about buying just another book for the fun of it. This is literally a book that has awakened thousands of dreamers to their dreams, right? So for those of you who are intellectually stuck, the good news is it's temporary. And all you have to do is to say, all right, I have to identify the place that I'm stuck. And I intellectually need to find a tool or a resource that opens my mind to greater understanding about what spiritual gifts are and how to use them, right? Or for some of you, it's escaped your mind, right? Like you wrote about your dreams 5 years ago. You have prophetic words from this last decade and you put them up on that shelf because you got so preoccupied with life. Go pull those things down and start to actually fan the flame within you, reminding you of all the things that God has said and all the things that God has done to the point that you are raring to go again, not because you need someone else to hold you accountable, because you've finally taken account for your own ability and the things that God has asked you to, and the things that you can't not think about, and the passions that He's put on the inside of you, right? That is now where I'm able to, as James says, okay, so now once I'm here, I'm going to go to God and I'm going to say, God, here's what you've asked me to do. Intellectually, I got that. Here's the dream you've placed in my heart and it won't go away. God, here I am. I'm in my Red Sea moment. Like I'm in the gap. I am doing hard things and doors are not opening. Financial provision is not happening, right? Like the people around me are not supporting me in what you've called me to do. God, what do you want me to know next? Right? The idea here is not account for your own ability, is realizing that God has put enough in you to get going and to get into the gaps and to do the things that He's called you to do. And then it's also the ability to know, hey, God, you've got me here, but you're going to need to give me more because I'm at a place that I've only taken myself as far as I can go. And now I need you to come and take me even further. I'm taking account for my ability. I am doing it to the best of my ability. I am given one more, and not because I have a coach or a trainer or a teammate, but because I each and every day am doing exactly what I know you've asked me to do. But now, God, I need you to download some wisdom to give me some discernment and understanding on what you want me to do next. These are the moments that James is talking about. If you're in a place right now that you intellectually don't understand, go get understanding. Maybe you are in the season of needing to lean in and to learn on, right? Like go watch Sean Bowles' podcast. Go do anything that Bill Johnson puts out there. Go to thejuliagentry.com, and I've got so many resources for dreamers. Right, there's spiritual gifts tests that you can take. There are so many profiles that help you just to identify more about who you are and how you're wired. Go have some fun learning. Then for those of you who I believe is the mass majority of you listening to this, like you are en route, right? And so what I'm here to tell you today is I need you to take account for your own ability and to keep your fire burning, knowing that God's eyes are on you. Nothing has gone unseen. Every tear you've cried, every question you've asked, every hand raise you've given, every seed you've sown, all of it is laid before His eyes. And that needs to be enough. I talked about this last week, but I think oftentimes we think that our results is what pleases God, right? That like, God, we did one more. No, it's your faith that pleases God. It doesn't say because you've taken account for your ability that you are pleasing God. No, it says that just because you've walked out in faith, even beyond your own ability, that's what pleases Him. But I do believe that we play a role in that, right? Like God can't do beyond what you can do if you're not even willing to get out of the boat and do what you can do. So believe me, there is a huge part to creating uninhibitedly that's going to have to let God's wisdom invade what the minute is minute a word, the little, the itty bitty bit about what we know. Like He has to invade our world. But if I'm not even willing, right, to take account for my own ability, if I'm not even willing to get out of the boat without someone else needing to handhold, right? Like how is heaven's reality is going to invade mine if I'm not even moving? Like let Him catch you in the act of doing one more, because you are taking account for your own ability, knowing that you will take account for everything He's given you and everything He's lavished upon you. Like that is on us, right? But then here's where James goes on to say, By the way, just make sure you ask empowered by confident faith without doubting that you will receive. For the ambivalent person believes 1 minute and doubts the next. Being undecided makes you like the rough seas, driven and tossed by the wind. You're up 1 minute and tossed the next. When you are half-hearted and wavering, it leaves you unstable. You know, shoot the messenger. That was James. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. What's the slogan? What am I even saying? Don't be mad at me for what James said. That's really what I'm trying to tell you right now. Look, he's the one that says, look, you're up 1 minute and down the next. When you're half-hearted and wavering, it leaves you unstable. Be sure that you really expect him to tell you. But when you ask him, be sure that you really expect him to tell you. For a doubtful mind will be unsettled as a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind, and every decision you then make will be uncertain as you turn this way and then that way. If you don't ask with faith, don't expect the Lord to give you any solid answer. I just feel like at some level, the reason that we're asking everybody and anything to hold us accountable is that we have just missed the beauty of being in a relationship with God. And it's not one that he just wants to give us his answers. He wants to give us his glory. He wants us to look more like him. He wants us to experience him, to encounter him. And so even though, truth be told, we may be seeking an answer or two, what he wants to give us is an experience with him. Because when I have an experience of his goodness, that creates a testimony that supersedes any intellect, right? The person who understands what God is saying versus the person who has experienced what God is saying, it's a totally different testimony. And so, what God is inviting us into is not just looking for the path of least resistance or looking for someone else to supply our answer or asking for someone else to do what we can do for ourselves. It's an opportunity to be so rooted and grounded in our continual encounters with the Lord that we don't need anyone else to tell us who we are. We don't need anyone else to affirm or validate what we're doing. We don't need someone else to give us the motivation to do one more push-up or write one more song or build that business one more day or take it one step further. Is that we actually have eyes on Jesus and we're like, I do this because he's asked me to do it. I don't do this because it's easy. I do this because of who he is and what he's asked me to do. Now, if we rewind, James says before he even tells us to seek God for wisdom, he actually says something that I think is important for us to understand in James 1:2. It says, "Dear brothers, is your life full of difficulties and temptations?" Could he be talking to you right now? Is your life full of difficulties and temptations? Then be happy, for when the way is rough, your patience has a chance to grow. So let it grow. And don't try to squirm out of your problems, for when your patience is finally in full bloom, then you will be ready for anything, strong in character, full and complete. Yowzers. When it seems as though you're facing nothing but difficulties, see it as an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. For when your faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things. And then as your endurance grows even stronger, it releases perfection into every part of your being until there's nothing missing and nothing lacking. What's the point? You're the point. The push-up is not the point. The dream is not the point. The acquisition is not the point. The finish line is not the point. Jesus already crossed the finish line. That means his finish line is your starting line. And that means now it's about you. It's about your character. It's about God refining you and inviting you into an invaluable opportunity where he's like, hey, I don't want you to outsource your fire. I want you to find the fire I've given you. I want you to find the fire I've given you. And sometimes the way that you find your fire is at the end of yourself. I'm in that season. I'm in the season, y'all. Sometimes, I do my best to keep it real. I do. I do my best to keep it real on this podcast, and I will never stand before you faking my way in sharing revelation. Truth be told, I have spent weeks hiding with the Lord because there's just been so many difficulties and so many financial pressures that we have faced together. My husband and I have never been in a season where our dreams and the visions that God has given us are more clear, and yet the adversity, the difficulties, the financial draining has never been greater. And so when I read verses like that, and I see that yeah, life is full of difficulties and temptations, but that is actually the way that I am going to grow in my maturity with God. Could I tap out? Yes. Could you tap out? Yes. Nobody said you can't not tap out. But when we understand the point, when we understand that the point is to find the fire that He's put on the inside of you to the point that it refines you, don't squirm your way out of it. I even love that James says, don't squirm your way out of it. Don't tap your way out of it. For when your patience and faith and endurance is in full bloom, then you will lack nothing. You will be strong in character. And then you will be the person who has what it takes to hold the weight of the blessing. That's the point. That's the point. Taking account for your own ability, digging deep and finding that fire, finding your reason for doing one more. Realizing that all eyes, right? God's right. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid before the eyes of Him to whom we must give account. And realizing that I am doing this for the glory of God, and I will find myself, right, at His feet, leaning in, finding that fire to the point that I allow it to refine me and shape me and mold me into everything He wanted me to be. So that when I hold the blessing, because you will, He promises it, that I will have the character to manage it, the character to hold it, the character to give it back to Him, the character to give it away to the world. That's the point. This is what it means to take account for your own ability. And I encourage you today, do that. I encourage you today to check your mode of operandi, to ask yourself, why am I doing? Am I needing to outsource? Am I needing to outsource my fire? Am I been leaning too much on accountability partners and a trainer and coach? And do I just need to find myself back at the feet of Jesus, leaning on His wisdom, knowing that He doesn't want to just give me the answer. He wants me to find His glory, which is then going to shape me and mold me? Probably. Is it the convenient answer? No. But is it an answer that's going to be worth it? Absolutely. So today, live accountable. Take account for your ability. Let your life laid bare before God, realizing that one day you will give account to Him and only Him. Then, what do I think will happen? I think you're going to create uninhibitedly and live unapologetically. Until next week.